He arrived at the hospital running through the rain, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest, and then he saw it. His fiancée, the woman he had trusted with his life, was pressing a pillow against his father's face, smothering him, while his father's weak hands clawed desperately at hers, begging, "Please, don't stop. Don't kill me." Alex froze, a scream caught in his throat. Time slowed. His mind refused to believe what his eyes were showing him. How could she? How could the woman he loved, the woman he planned to marry, betray him in the cruelest, most horrifying way possible, right before his eyes? Before we dive into this shocking story, make sure to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss the full twists and drama ahead. Trust me, you'll want to see what happens next. Alex Harper, one of the youngest billionaires in the country, had built his empire from nothing, mastering every boardroom and every deal with sharp intelligence and ruthless determination. But nothing in his life, no amount of wealth, power, or influence, could prepare him for this moment. The call from the hospital had come just 20 minutes ago, shaking him from a late-night strategy meeting. His father, Richard Harper, had been rushed to the hospital after collapsing at home, and Alex had promised himself he would get there as fast as possible. Nothing else mattered. Not the contracts, not the investors, not even Sophia. Nothing, except saving his father. But now, seeing Sophia in that position, Alex felt the ground beneath him crumble. She had always been charming, graceful, flawless in her ability to manipulate appearances. To the world, she was perfect for him, smart, elegant, seemingly devoted. But now he saw a side of her that was cruel, terrifying, and unimaginable. Every memory of their love clashed violently with the horror unfolding before him. Every whispered promise, every shared smile, every tender word, suddenly, it felt like a lie carefully crafted to trap him. He staggered forward, wet from the rain, adrenaline surging through his veins. "Sophia? Stop!" he shouted, his voice echoing across the sterile hallway. The world seemed to pause for a second. Sophia looked up, startled, a flash of guilt crossing her face. But it quickly vanished, replaced by a cold, controlled expression that Alex had never seen before. The pillow pressed down slightly more against his father's face, and Richard Harper gasped for air, eyes wide with terror. Alex's stomach twisted violently, nausea and fury combining into a sharp, bitter taste that made him feel like he might collapse right there. In a split second, Alex threw himself forward, grabbing the pillow from her hands and tossing it aside. He pulled his father into his arms as Richard coughed and tried to regain his breath, shaking uncontrollably. Dad, it's okay, I've got you." Alex's voice cracked with panic. His father's lips trembled as he whispered, "Alex, Sophia, don't." But the words were lost in a shuddering gasp. Sophia stepped back, her perfectly composed mask slipping just enough for Alex to see her true nature, a mixture of defiance, fear, and something darker that he couldn't yet name. "Alex, it's not what you think," she tried to say, but the words rang hollow. Her calm explanation didn't match what he had just witnessed. How could she possibly justify trying to harm his father? The emergency room staff, alerted by the commotion, rushed in. Nurses grabbed Richard Harper and placed him on a stretcher, while Alex held his father's hand tightly, refusing to let go. Each beeping monitor, each hurried instruction from the doctors, only intensified the storm of anger and betrayal brewing inside Alex. His mind raced with questions he wasn't ready to face, with fears he couldn't yet admit. Why? How could someone so close to him harbor such dark intentions? What had he missed in their relationship? For a moment, Alex allowed himself to just breathe, to focus entirely on his father, the man who had taught him how to fight, how to build, how to survive. Richard's eyes fluttered open, and he gave a weak, grateful smile. "Alex, you came? Thank you." Alex's chest tightened. All the rage, the fear, the confusion, and the heartbreak were still there, but in that moment, his priority was crystal clear: saving his father, keeping him alive, protecting him from any harm, including from the woman he had once trusted most. Sophia remained in the corner, silent now, watching with a mixture of hesitation and resentment. Alex noticed it, the way she didn't step forward to help, the way she didn't intervene. It wasn't remorse, it was calculation, and it frightened him more than anything else. This woman, the one he had planned to spend his life with, was capable of something monstrous, something he would never have imagined. As his father was wheeled away into the intensive care unit, Alex followed closely, holding his hand, whispering words of comfort, even as his own mind screamed in disbelief. How could love turn into betrayal so violently, so suddenly? How could someone he had trusted with everything become a threat in an instant? And most importantly, why? In that moment, Alex made a silent vow. No matter the cost, no matter the consequences, he would uncover the truth. He would find out what drove Sophia to this act. Was it greed? Was it revenge? Or something even darker lurking beneath her perfect facade? And he would ensure that nothing and no one could harm his family again. Not Sophia, not anyone. The storm outside raged on, rain pelting the hospital windows like the beating of Alex's own heart. Angry, relentless, and impossible to ignore. And in the sterile white glow of the emergency room, Alex Harper realized that his life, as he knew it, had changed forever. Alex followed the stretcher into the ICU, his grip on his father's hand unyielding. The rhythmic beeping of the monitors, the hiss of oxygen, and the sterile smell of the room created a surreal cocoon around him. His father's breathing was shallow, each gasp a stark reminder of how close they had come to losing him. And all the while, Alex's mind was consumed by Sophia, the woman he thought he knew, the woman who had tried to kill his father right in front of him. Every instinct screamed at him to confront her, to demand answers, but a small, quieter voice warned him to focus on what mattered most: keeping his father alive. The doctors worked swiftly, explaining to Alex in clipped, professional tones the seriousness of Richard Harper's condition. A sudden heart complication had left him in critical state, and he would need rest, monitoring, and care for the next 48 hours. Alex nodded absently, barely hearing the medical jargon. His mind kept flashing back to that horrifying image of Sophia. The betrayal was too fresh, too raw, and yet it didn't fit. Sophia had never struck him as violent. She had been charming, intelligent, manipulative maybe, but violent? It seemed impossible. And yet, the evidence was right there in front of his eyes. After the doctors left for other duties, Alex sat beside his father's bed, gripping his hand, watching the rise and fall of his chest. Richard opened his eyes weakly, his gaze settling on his son. "Alex, I'm so glad you came," he whispered. I need you to promise me something." Alex leaned closer, ready to respond. "Anything, Dad. I'll do anything." "Watch her." "Alex." "Sophia." His words faltered, but the fear in his father's eyes spoke volumes. Alex felt his stomach knot tighter. Was his father aware of something he hadn't yet seen? Did Richard know more about Sophia than Alex realized? His mind raced. Could it be that Sophia's actions were not a spontaneous act of madness, but part of something larger, something sinister? Meanwhile, Sophia remained at the hospital, pacing the lobby, her calm exterior a thin veil over the tension she felt inside. Every now and then, she glanced toward the ICU entrance, checking for Alex's reactions, gauging his suspicion. She had planned this meticulously, calculating every move to keep her secrets hidden, but the chaos of tonight had been unexpected. Alex had arrived too soon, and his presence had forced her hand before she was ready. Now, all she could do was wait, plan her next move carefully, and pray that her charm and influence would buy her time. Alex, however, was not the man to be fooled. Over the years, he had learned to read people, to see through masks and lies, to anticipate betrayal in business and life alike. He knew something was very wrong. Sophia's composure at the hospital, her calculated movements, her silence, it all screamed deceit. And yet, he had no concrete proof beyond what he had seen with his own eyes. A dangerous thought crept into his mind. Could someone so close to him really be capable of such cruelty? Could love, trust, and loyalty be so easily betrayed? Hours passed slowly. Alex remained in the ICU, refusing to leave his father's side, sleeping only in short, restless bursts, haunted by the memory of Sophia's betrayal. He watched as nurses adjusted monitors and administered medication, listening to the soft, labored breaths of the man who had given him everything. And as he watched, he realized that something fundamental had changed in him. The world he had known, one of power, wealth, and influence, suddenly seemed meaningless in the face of betrayal and danger. Finally, when the hospital quieted for the night, Alex confronted Sophia. He found her standing near the parking lot, her coat soaked from the rain, her expression calm yet guarded. "Sophia," he said, his voice low but filled with restrained anger. "We need to talk. Now." She turned, eyes narrowing slightly. "Alex, you're overreacting." "It's not what you think," she said, her tone measured. Alex shook his head, stepping closer, ignoring the drizzle soaking his hair. "Don't lie to me. I saw everything. Do you have any idea what you were doing? How close you came to killing my father?" Sophia's calm mask faltered for the first time. It wasn't like that," she said, her voice wavering. I had no choice. You don't understand." Alex's eyes burned with fury. "No choice? Don't try to justify this. If you loved me, if you cared about him, you wouldn't even have been near him." His fists clenched at his sides. Sophia stepped back, her composure returning slowly. I did it for us. For our future. You don't understand the risks. There are things you don't know about your family, Alex. Dangerous things." Alex froze, suspicion mingling with disbelief. "Dangerous things? What could be more dangerous than trying to kill your father? Explain." "Now," he demanded, his voice cold and sharp, slicing through the night air. She hesitated, then said quietly, almost pleadingly, "I can't not hear. But you'll understand soon. Just trust me a little longer." Her words did nothing to ease Alex's suspicion. If anything, they fueled it. Trust her? After what he had seen, his entire world had shifted, and nothing would ever be the same again. Alex walked back to his father's room, rain dripping from his hair, mind racing. His father's life had been saved tonight, but the betrayal lingered like a shadow he couldn't shake. Sophia's motives remained a mystery, her presence a threat, and the man who had been his anchor was still fragile, still fighting for every breath. And Alex knew, with a certainty that chilled him, that the storm had only just begun. In the quiet of the ICU, Alex made a silent promise. He would uncover the truth, no matter how dark it was. He would protect his father, expose Sophia, and ensure that betrayal, deceit, and danger never threatened his family again. And somewhere in the shadows, he knew that Sophia was already planning her next move, one that could either destroy him or force him into a game he had never imagined. The next morning, Alex returned to the hospital, the memory of last night haunting him with every step. His father's condition had stabilized, but Richard Harper was still weak, still recovering from the heart complication that could have ended his life. Every time Alex looked at him, a mix of relief and fear churned inside his chest. But alongside that fear, another, sharper emotion had taken root: betrayal. The thought of Sophia's actions replayed in his mind like a broken record, and every passing moment made it harder to focus on anything else. He couldn't stay passive. He needed answers. Why would she do something so cruel? And what did she mean by dangerous things about his family? Questions without answers were poison, and Alex Harper was not a man to let poison seep into his life unchecked. He began retracing every detail he could remember: the moments leading up to the hospital, her behavior in the days before, the subtle lies she had told. Every inconsistency, every hesitation, suddenly felt like pieces of a puzzle he needed to solve. Sophia, of course, was careful. She didn't contact him directly, didn't attempt to explain herself fully. Instead, she moved strategically, as if she were already playing a different game, one Alex hadn't even been aware existed. Friends who had once spoken to her casually now seemed cautious. Colleagues avoided mentioning her in meetings, and her social media posts, normally filled with laughter and stage perfection, now carried a subtle coldness, a detachment that made Alex uneasy. It was clear she had hidden depths he had never imagined, and perhaps secrets that could destroy him if revealed. Determined to uncover the truth, Alex began his investigation. He accessed surveillance footage from the hospital, checking every camera in the corridor and ICU entrance. Every angle he examined showed the same thing he had seen with his own eyes: Sophia's presence, her calculated movements, her unusual proximity to his father. Nothing explained her motives, but the evidence of her betrayal was undeniable. His heart ached not just for the act itself, but for the trust he had placed in her. This was more than a mistake. It was intentional, deliberate, and cruel. Yet Alex knew confrontation alone would not yield answers. Sophia was clever, manipulative, and she had shown she could lie effortlessly. He needed leverage, proof, a way to force the truth out without giving her the chance to twist the story. He began digging into her past, her communications, and her recent financial activity. Every email, every message, every call became a potential clue. He questioned mutual friends subtly, watched for patterns, and even tracked her movements discreetly. It was exhausting, grueling work, but Alex was relentless. There was no way he could afford to be wrong, not with his father's life and the integrity of his family at stake. Meanwhile, Sophia sensed the shift. She could feel Alex's suspicion growing, could see it in his eyes whenever they crossed paths at the hospital. And while she was careful to maintain her calm, the tension was palpable. She began preparing for what she knew was inevitable, Alex discovering the truth. But she wasn't about to reveal everything just yet. She thrived on control, and control meant staying a step ahead, manipulating perceptions, and ensuring that her narrative unfolded on her terms. One evening, Alex decided he could wait no longer. He confronted her again, this time at her apartment. The rain was relentless outside, pounding against the windows as if echoing the storm inside him. "Sophia," he said, his voice low, tight with anger, "I've given you chances. I've tried to understand. But it's over. You need to tell me everything. Now." Sophia looked at him, her expression unreadable, and for a long moment, the room was silent except for the sound of the rain. Then she finally spoke, her voice measured and controlled. "You don't know the half of it, Alex," she said. "Your father, your family. There are things you've never been told. Secrets. Dangerous secrets. What I did to protect you. To protect us. You think it was betrayal, but it was survival." Alex's mind spun. Protect him? Protect them? From what? "Explain," he demanded, his fists clenching. "Explain before I lose everything I've built, before I lose my father, before I lose myself." Sophia hesitated, then slowly began to reveal fragments of a story Alex could scarcely believe. His family, the Harper Empire, had enemies he had never seen, hidden rivals, business associates who would stop at nothing to destroy them. There were threats, legal entanglements, even past deals that carried danger beyond what Alex had imagined. Sophia had discovered a plot targeting his father's life, and her actions, shocking, violent, and terrifying as they were, had been her way of intervening, trying to neutralize a threat Alex had no knowledge of. Alex's mind reeled. He wanted to hate her, wanted to scream, wanted to turn and leave forever, but somewhere in the chaos, a sliver of understanding crept in. Could it be true? Had Sophia's betrayal been a twisted, horrifying attempt to save them rather than destroy them? And if so, how could he ever trust her again? The question consumed him. Love and trust had collided violently with deception and survival, leaving him suspended in a world where nothing was certain. The revelation left him shaken, but it also ignited a fire inside. Alex knew that if his father's life was at risk, if his family's empire was under threat, he couldn't afford hesitation. He had to act, to uncover the full truth, to secure his father's safety, and to confront those lurking in the shadows, whether they were enemies outside or betrayal from within. And somewhere, beyond the hospital walls, the storm of danger, deceit, and revenge was gathering, ready to crash down. Alex Harper, billionaire, fighter, son, was ready. But he also knew this. Nothing in his life would ever be the same again. Sophia, the woman he thought he loved, was no longer just a fiancée. She was a puzzle, a threat, and perhaps, in some twisted way, a savior. And he would uncover every secret, no matter how dark, no matter how dangerous. The next few days were a blur of hospital visits, late-night investigations, and sleepless nights. Alex refused to leave his father's side, yet he couldn't ignore the gnawing truth. Sophia's warnings weren't just empty words. The threats she hinted at were real, and they were closing in faster than Alex could have imagined. Every call he made, every contact he questioned, every background check revealed fragments of a dark puzzle. Business partners with hidden grudges, former associates plotting revenge, and shadowy figures who had infiltrated the very heart of the Harper Empire. Alex's phone buzzed late one night with an anonymous message. "He's not safe. Watch those closest to you. Trust no one." The chill it sent down his spine was worse than the freezing rain outside. He knew immediately that this wasn't just a bluff. Someone was watching, someone had been planning, and someone wanted to harm his father, or worse, take everything Alex had worked for. The realization struck him like a hammer. Sophia had been right. The danger was real, and he had almost ignored it in his fury. Determined to act, Alex began piecing together the evidence, linking company records, emails, and phone logs to identify possible threats. The more he dug, the more sinister the picture became. People he had trusted, advisors he had worked with for years, now appeared in a web of deceit and manipulation. Someone had orchestrated attacks on his father's life for months, even years, and Alex realized that Sophia's actions, shocking as they had been, may have been the only reason Richard Harper was still alive. Meanwhile, Sophia didn't make things easy. She remained distant, her motives opaque, her every action measured. Yet, Alex noticed subtle signs of her concern. Quick glances, slight hesitation in her voice, moments where she seemed genuinely worried for his father. It confused him. Could the woman he almost hated be working to save him all along? The contradiction twisted in his chest like a knife. Love, hate, fear, trust. They were all tangled in a dangerous web, and Alex didn't know which way to turn. Then, a breakthrough came. A private investigator Alex had hired uncovered a crucial lead. One of the hospital staff, someone close to Richard Harper, had been bribed to tamper with his care. The evidence was undeniable. Payment records, covert meetings, and surveillance footage showing suspicious behavior. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, and Alex realized that Sophia had anticipated this very betrayal. Her actions in the hospital, terrifying as they had seemed, were likely a preemptive strike, a way to neutralize someone who intended to harm his father before Alex even arrived. Armed with this knowledge, Alex confronted Sophia once more. This time, the meeting took place in a quiet, secluded office at the Harper headquarters. He stood across from her, anger, confusion, and a flicker of reluctant understanding in his eyes. "Explain everything," he demanded, voice tight. "No more secrets." Sophia exhaled, calm now, her eyes steady. "I've tried to protect you, Alex. Protect your father, protect your family. That night at the hospital, I had no choice. The man you trusted, he was about to do something that could have killed your father instantly. I had to act." Alex's mind reeled. "But why the pillow? Why risk everything, including yourself?" Sophia's gaze softened for just a moment. "Because he had to appear harmless, and no one could know until it was too late. I had to shock him into stopping. You would have reacted the same way if you were there first." Her explanation hung in the air like smoke, impossible to verify, yet strangely plausible. Even as Alex tried to digest her words, the danger wasn't over. The investigation revealed a network of enemies who were still active, rivals within the company, jealous competitors, and even distant family members seeking to seize control of the Harper fortune. Every day brought new threats. Every phone call could be a trap. Every meeting could be a setup. Alex realized that survival now required not just intelligence and courage, but strategy, ruthlessness, and the ability to anticipate betrayal at every turn. Sophia, for all her secrets, became an uneasy ally. Together, they started to map the threats, track suspicious movements, and create plans to safeguard Richard Harper and the Harper Empire. Trust was fragile, often broken by lingering doubts, but necessity forced them to cooperate. Alex learned to watch her closely, reading every gesture, every word, every nuance, searching for sincerity amidst layers of deception. One night, while reviewing surveillance footage in the Harper boardroom, Alex finally saw it. A clear image of the man behind the bribery, the sabotage, and the plots against his father. It was someone Alex had trusted, someone who had smiled, shaken hands, and shared boardroom victories. The revelation hit him like lightning. Betrayal wasn't just possible, it had been right under his nose. The man's plan had been meticulous, calculated, and ruthless, and without Sophia's intervention, it might have succeeded. Alex leaned back in his chair, chest tight with exhaustion, fear, and a strange sense of gratitude. Sophia had risked everything, had taken unimaginable actions, and had saved his father. And yet, the question lingered. Could he ever forgive her fully? Could he ever trust again? As the storm outside mirrored the storm in his life, Alex knew one thing for certain. Nothing would ever be the same. The path forward would be treacherous, dangerous, and full of heartbreak, but he was ready. He had to be. The clock ticked into the early hours of the morning, But Alex remained vigilant. Somewhere in the shadows, enemies waited, deception lingered, and betrayal threatened to strike again. And somewhere, Sophia Harper, the woman who had terrified him, confused him, and possibly saved his father, remained a mystery he had yet to solve. The final confrontation began at the Harper estate, a sprawling mansion now shrouded in tension rather than luxury. Alex had spent days gathering evidence, tracing every suspicious movement, and preparing for the moment he would confront the man who had dared threaten his father. Every decision had been calculated, every contingency planned, but nothing could prepare him for the storm of emotions that raged inside him as Sophia stood quietly by his side. Her presence was a constant reminder of the blurred line between betrayal and salvation, love and deception. Alex had learned to read people, to anticipate moves, to see through masks, but tonight, even he struggled. Sophia's face remained calm, unreadable, yet there was a subtle tension in her posture, a quiet alertness that spoke louder than words. She had been through this before. She had survived threats Alex hadn't even imagined, and somehow, she had orchestrated protection for his father in ways he was only beginning to understand. The mixture of gratitude, anger, and suspicion coursing through Alex's veins was almost too much to bear. Then the moment came. A man, once trusted, once respected, appeared at the gates, his eyes calculating, his smile thin and malicious. It was Jonathan Mills, a former business partner who had plotted to seize control of the Harper empire and had orchestrated the attempt on Richard's life. Alex stepped forward, every muscle tense, every nerve alert. "It's over, Jonathan. Your plans, your lies, your betrayal. It ends tonight," he said, his voice cold and authoritative. Jonathan smirked, unbothered, as if he had rehearsed this confrontation 1,000 times. "You think you can stop me?" Jonathan taunted. "You're just one man, Alex. Your empire, your father, all of it will crumble. And Sophia." He paused, eyes flicking toward her. "She's just as much a part of this as you are. Do you really trust her?" Alex's jaw tightened. Every word Jonathan spoke was designed to provoke doubt, to weaken his resolve. But Alex had learned too much, seen too much. He knew now that Sophia's actions, as terrifying as they had been, were meant to protect, not destroy. A tense standoff followed, the night filled with the hum of distant traffic, the rustling leaves, and the crackle of electricity from the estate's lighting. Alex advanced, carefully, strategically, while Sophia stayed slightly behind, alert, ready to act if necessary. The confrontation was as much mental as it was physical, a battle of wits, nerves, and timing. Alex's training, instincts, and intelligence clashed with Jonathan's arrogance and deceit, and slowly, methodically, Alex cornered him. Every lie Jonathan had counted on, every secret he had exploited, was now being turned against him. Finally, it was over. Jonathan, realizing he had underestimated Alex and the protective measures Sophia had put in place, surrendered. The police, alerted earlier by Alex, arrived to take him away. The threat to the Harper empire and to Richard Harper's life had been neutralized. The tension that had gripped Alex for days finally began to ease, though the emotional turmoil remained. Sophia, standing quietly beside him, looked at Alex with an expression that was difficult to read, part relief, part apprehension. Alex turned to her, the weight of the past days evident in his gaze. "Why didn't you tell me everything from the start?" he asked, voice low but trembling. Sophia exhaled, her eyes softening. "Because I knew you would react like last time. Fear, anger. You wouldn't have understood the danger, and you might have done something irreversible. I had to act first, protect your father, protect you, without giving the enemy a chance." Alex's mind raced. The anger he had felt, the betrayal, the horror, all of it had been based on what he had seen in the hospital. But now, understanding her perspective, seeing the lengths she had gone to protect his family, he felt a complicated mixture of relief, admiration, and lingering hurt. He realized that love and trust were not always simple. Sometimes, they were tested in ways that were terrifying, impossible, and morally complex. The following morning, Alex visited his father in the ICU. Richard Harper, though weak, smiled as his son entered the room. "Alex, you did it. You protected us all," he said, his voice still frail but filled with pride. Alex squeezed his father's hand, feeling a rush of relief and gratitude. "We did it, Dad. Together," he said. Sophia stood quietly in the background, watching, and for the first time, Alex felt a sense of cautious trust returning. He still didn't fully understand every choice she had made, but he could see her intentions were genuine, her loyalty ultimately aligned with his family's survival. Days turned into weeks. The Harper empire stabilized, the threats neutralized, and Richard Harper began his recovery. Alex and Sophia, though cautious, began rebuilding their relationship on new terms, terms forged in fire, betrayal, and survival. Their bond was no longer naive or blind. It was tempered, stronger, and resilient. They had faced the worst together and survived, emerging with a deeper understanding of each other and the world they inhabited. As Alex looked out over the city from his office, reflecting on the events that had nearly destroyed him, he realized that life was unpredictable, filled with danger and deception, but also with opportunities for redemption, courage, and understanding. Sophia's actions, terrifying as they had seemed, had ultimately saved his family, and he knew that moving forward, their partnership, both personal and professional, would be stronger than ever. The storm, both literal and metaphorical, had passed. Alex Harper, billionaire, son, and now wiser than ever, had faced betrayal, danger, and the limits of trust, and had come through stronger. He had protected his father, confronted his enemies, and uncovered the truth, proving that even in a world of wealth and power, courage, intelligence, and determination were the greatest assets of all. And somewhere in the quiet of the estate, Sophia Harper smiled faintly, knowing that despite the shadows, they had survived the darkest night together. The future, uncertain as it was, now held hope, resilience, and the promise of a bond forged in fire, a bond that neither betrayal nor danger could ever fully break.